so kicking off my review of 2025 anime, I'm going to start with movies. Now, for the actual top 10, they're all going to be television shows. I thought let's just keep movies and TV shows separate. There's only 3 movies that I really watched this year that I would say like came out in 2025 that I was able to watch. I've saw plenty of other anime movies that released in 23 and 24, and then we didn't get them in the US until 2025. So movies are always like a weird area. But for that, all that being said, I watched 3 movies of note this year. They released in 2025, and actually 2 of them in theaters. So the obvious one is, of course, I sat down and I watched Demon Slayer: The Infinity Castle Arc Part 1. This was this movie was more like watching multiple episodes just edited together into a long film. So the Demon Slayer film, I have an episode on it, and I have an episode on the series in November 2025, and I have a short little blurb about the movie. I think Demon Slayer had flashes of these brilliant moments, but nothing was allowed to breathe. You had all these major battles, backstories, and deaths, and it was just like a move along kind of thing. So yes, the movie is, and it's also part 1 of a trilogy, so it's just going to be a while in between all of these parts where so much is happening. Now, the second movie I watched was Chainsaw Man, the Reze arc. This was much more enjoyable as a film. It had a solid beginning, middle, and end. It's one of my favorite gut-wrenching arcs in the overall Chainsaw Man story that builds up to this one gorgeous, gory battle that was pure spectacle all the way through, and it was my favorite theater experience. The third movie I watched is also part of a movie series, a trilogy, and this is a straight-to-Netflix film. So this is Mononoke Part 2, The Ashes of Rage. And so the thing with Mononoke is the main television series was out in the mid-2000s. I think it was like around 2007. Very, very distinct art style, kind of like a woodblock painting art style. The episodes in the arcs are relatively standalone, and so are these movies. You can think of Mononoke as a sort of supernatural Knives Out. Spooky Japanese ghosts are haunting a space and killing the victims, and then you cap it off with a colorful ghost fight where you have the big exorcism scene. And again, I'm just so happy to see Mononoke get new entries. We get the medicine seller returning to the Oku, which is basically the emperor's harem and all of like a bunch of administrative district as well. And part 1, he exorcised this water demon Karakasa. And for part 2, the mystery is literally heating up because, as with a movie called The Ashes of Rage, this is a spirit that wields fire, which is kind of a big deal when all the buildings are made of wood. And so getting into the countdown proper with the television anime, I was running through my stats, and actually I got a rundown from my anime list. So I know I watched something like 40 to 45, and these are ones like I watched and completed 40 to 45 television anime this year. And it was a really solid group all around. So picking 10 out of it was particularly brutal. And I do want to mention at least 4 honorable mentions this time. These are things that I don't want to end the year without talking about. So first off, Ruri Rocks. It's the cute show about a young girl, Ruri. She discovers her passion for gemstones and geology. Also her repeated encounters with, air quotes, giant boulders. It's kind of a fan servicey show with a couple of characters. Ruri is not included in that, thank goodness. But yeah, the show is, it's got some bounce to it. But it really was a show about discovering your passion for the natural world and the scientific process and being rewarded for said process, even when you don't find the thing that you look for. But of course, Ruri has just amazing luck, so she's able to find these treasure troves of these massive gem deposits, because of course, that's just how it is. But yeah, Ruri Rocks, a really cute show, really solid show. The second show is Anne Shirley, which is a latest adaptation of Anne of Green Gables, which has been adapted multiple times across film, television, anime, you name it. But Anne Shirley, the first episodes were absolutely gorgeous. In fact, one of the prettiest shows of this year, but it wasn't quite the show that I felt compelled to come back to week. I love the Japanese cast, but it's Anne of Green Gables. So my thought process at the time was, let it all come out and then get it dubbed into English. Then I'll give it a chance. I want to hear the English dub and compare it to the Japanese dub. And I just wanted to have it all out so I could watch it all at one time. And just as things happened, especially as the summer season heated up, Anne just got lost in the shuffle, and I passed her over just like the start of the series. But I mean, Anne, I apologize for not giving you a chance last year. You are now officially on my 2026 watch list, and I've started it up again. I haven't progressed further. I'm back at episode 3 or so. And again, this show is just gorgeous. You guys, it's just, I don't see anyone else talking about Anne of Green Gables aside from, obviously Anime World Order. Like Gerald had a lot of good things to say about Anne Shirley, and his commentary on the show was also like a spark in my head of like, oh my God, I forgot about Anne of Green Gables. Oh my goodness, I am just the worst human being. Just all of that stuff in my head. So yes, Anne Shirley is on my 2026 watch list. Thank you so much, Gerald, for reminding me that the show existed. 2025 was a year. Speaking of things that I was reminded of, may I ask for one final thing? I just don't watch this genre of show, but may I ask for one final thing was full of these fun clips of Scarlet just putting on the knuckle dusters and punching dudes' lights out. She gets a dragon, teaches it how to do tricks. Her hair changes to like she's got a Cruella de Vil look going on. So just all the different things of coming out of May I Ask for One Final Thing, and just how the show, like now that it's all out, and I know that that the show did not fall off as was my worry. This is now on my list. I'm going to watch the whole thing, and I think I'm going to have a lot of fun watching on it. Like, May I Ask for One Final Thing? What everyone's been talking about this show had me convinced that I missed out on a gem, and so now I'm going to rectify this. And then last, but certainly not least, I did watch this show, completed it. This is Clevitas, also in a genre that I don't really check out that much anymore, as in the dark fantasy swords and sorceries. This was a really big surprise for me because the whole dark fantasy thing, it can go either way. It could be decent or it could be another redo of Healer. You just don't really know. And especially with the whole isekai muddling the waters and just crappy light novel adaptations, you just never know. But Clevitas, thankfully, is very much better than those shows. It actually kept me on my toes with surprisingly a subversive narrative, clever plot twists, of course, absolutely brutal combat, but all of it was backed up by solid world building and character stakes that helped sort of ground these ridiculous fights of like magic laser beams and swords that can cut through an entire river, and just all of the fireworks that were going on. At the heart of Clevitas was this really interesting story about an unstoppable force when he decides to take a chance on the people that want to essentially kill him. And so without further ado, we are in the official list of the top 10 anime of my top 10 favorite anime of 2025. Starting with number 10. Well, okay, number 10 is another collection of shows because one thing that really defined 2025 for me was there were a lot of really good sequels. And when I'm making a list of top 10, I personally want to highlight the more new and original series, because if I fill my list full of sequels, and again, if I only ever watch sequels this year, then yes, this list would be full of sequels. But again, I watched 40 dadgum shows, so no, the number 10 spot is the collective talking point for a lot of sequels, because again, if the list was full of them, it would be, hey, I liked season 1, season 2, or etc. was more of what I enjoyed. There is one exception to that on my list, as you'll hear later, but again, it's not, these sequels are more like within a year or two of their last season. So these include My Dress Up Darling, Kaiju number 8, Shangri-La Frontier, Spy Family, Grand Blue Season 2, which admittedly took a couple of years to come out, Dan Da Dan Season 2. Of that crew, I really loved My Dress Up Darling, Shangri-La Frontier. That's my episode 2 of the Anime Field Guide, so obviously I love that show. Dan Da Dan Season 2 was obviously excellent, but this is also the year that I finally caught up with Spy Family. As the last time and the only time I checked out the show was when it premiered in 2022. I watched the first 12 episodes, and that was it. So this year, I watched all of Spy Family seasons 1 and 2. I watched through season 3. It is so consistently fun and good and engaging that I love Spy Family. But my number 10 spot goes to Apothecary Diaries Season 2, i.e. the chief reason I invented this little rule about sequels, because otherwise, if you listen to my 2023 and 2024 roundups, Apothecary Diaries is in like the top 5 or 3 of both of those. So if I didn't have it at number 10 just for the spot for sequels, it would be in my top 3 for the third year running. Apothecary Diaries is just that good. Because Season 2 was like the hold my beer to the revelations of Season 1. Namely, we were diving into the political underbelly of the Rear Palace and just the rot seeping below the surface. More specifically, this season dealt with generational trauma and how these feelings can fester within someone and warp them and the people around them over the decades. How do you break this cycle? Which this one inciting incident or series of incidents in the past led to all of the major reveals and betrayals of this season, but also a potential path forward to reconciliation after all was said and done. The dynamic between Mao Mao and Jinshi is also heating up, but she still has to be very careful, because no matter how clever or capable she is, Mao Mao is still a servant woman in a deeply feudal and class-based society. So any wrong move and it's off with her head. So it continues to be that really clever dynamic in the medicine and the mysteries, and again, just the political side of the world that Mao Mao doesn't want to be involved in, but she gets roped into regardless, just because that's just how the story goes. Number 9 is neither complex nor political. In fact, the cast seems to be operating under a single shared brain cell. In my number 9 pick, Tojima Wants to Be a Kamen Rider. This is another show that just took me completely by surprise this year, and it's just truly excellent, just dumb fun. And the general story is you got this guy named Tanzaburo Tojima. He's a super fan of the Kamen Rider tokusatsu show, basically masked superhero in spandex and the special effects and fighting all the bad guys. And as a child, he fell in love with this show, and he decided to model his life after the Kamen Rider superhero, to the point that Tojima, he's now strong enough to wrestle a bear without difficulty. However, despite all of his effort, Kamen Rider and his villainous adversary, the evil Shocker organization, this is all fiction. Or is it? Because one fateful day, Tojima runs into the real Shocker organization, including its monstrous minions that are just purely overpowerful. And so Tojima teams up with fellow Kamen Rider devotees whose lives were also affected by the Shocker organization. And so this team of abnormally strong, quote, normal people is born in their quest to defeat Shocker and bring peace to Japan. And this is all ostensibly in the real world. So everyone else around them just treats them like a bunch of weirdos. This is based on the manga written and illustrated by Yokosaro Shibata, most notably of Air Master, which was a street fighting manga between very athletic ladies, which if you know anything about Air Master, this will fit you right in with Tojima Rider. So of course, Kamen Rider is the chief influence, but you don't need a full background of the tokusatsu series to enjoy the insanity on screen. They do a really good job of explaining all the Kamen Rider stuff. I myself basically went in knowing next to nothing about Kamen Rider, but this is a show where everything is over the top. The dialogue, reaction faces are just hilarious. Nobody in the show has an inside voice. Reaction faces are perfectly timed and exaggerated for maximum comedic effect. This show is dumb. It knows it's dumb. The characters are dumb, but everything in the show is also sincere. And the enemy, Shocker, is indeed very deadly. So no matter how ridiculous the antics they get up to, the catchphrases, or Yuriko's tackle wrestling outfit, thank you God. The show is genuine, it has a lot of heart, and I think Tojima Rider is very deserving of your time. Which leads me into my number 8. It's another manga adaptation, this one courtesy of Hiroshi Fukuda. This is a musical anime where rich girls in frilly dresses play hard rock at their school and secretly form a rock band. So this is Rock is a Lady's Modesty. Now, the chief musical influence comes from the group Bandmaid, who's done a number of anime openings, along with the motion capture of their performances, as well as their music for both the opening credits theme and all of the insert songs throughout. Lilisa Suzunomiya attends the elite Ocean Girls Academy for rich girls, But in actuality, she's not a rich girl at all. In fact, her mother remarried into a rich elite family, and so Lily was adopted, prompting Lily to create this facade of purity and high-class culture in order to fool her classmates while throwing away her dreams of rocking out with the guitar she got from her biological dad. However, a weird twist of fate ensnares Lily with the school idol Otaho Kurogane, the, quote, perfect rich girl, perfect Ojo-sama, who secretly rocks out on the drums and is just an overall rock and roll nut. Lily can't help but get pulled into Otaho's orbit, and together they form a rock band in secret, kicking off the journey of a lifetime in the pursuit of rock and roll perfection with 2 extra classmates, and they got to keep the whole thing under wraps while also protecting their identities. But in actuality, this is a show about coming out. The rock and roll storylines, like this is all the hallmarks of getting the band together, persisting through setbacks and disagreements, but it's really a show about being true to yourself, not letting society dictate, your entire life and who you are. But the dialogue and phrasing is extremely lesbian coded, and it is awesome. It's a really cool series that works on multiple levels. The music is, of course, amazing. It's high energy, high volume, high emotions, all wrapped into this really cool package about, being true to yourself and, don't let other people, dictate your entire path in life. Stand up for yourself. It's another one of those big surprises that I just was not expecting at all this year, and I'm so glad that I was able to watch it over on HIDIVE. Now, on the subject of high emotions, my next pick, number 7, is Gachiakata. Now, this is animated by Studio Bones based on the manga authored by Kei Arana. Notably, it was an assistant for Okubo on Fire Force, and before that was a fan of Soul Eater, and so that influence is, of course, very apparent, but that's just what got my foot in the door, because her artwork, and by extension the staff at Bones, this show speaks for itself. And we generally follow this kid, Rudo. He lives in a slum town surrounding a city of opulence, where the society scorns the handling of trash and broken objects with something akin to like a religious fervor. And Rudo is a tinkerer, and he likes repairing broken things. So he's already on the outs of this entire society, like being hunted down by the police and everything. One day he is framed for the murder of his guardian, Regato. No trial, no nothing, he's just a slum kid. And so they immediately ordain capital punishment, which means exile to the pit, where giant monsters come to life from the trash and the sludge and the refuse. And so Rudo is strung up and dropped over the edge into the pit, where he wakes up in a mysterious toxic wasteland that the folks nearby call the ground. And so he's rescued by a group called the Cleaners, who wield a power called Giving. So the Cleaners are also known as Givers, who imbue normal objects, like an umbrella or scissors, with this energy to transform them into badass weapons of destruction. Now, the Cleaners, they basically clean up the trash beasts, these giant monsters that, again, the giant monsters from the trash and everything, that wasn't a fairy tale. They actually exist. And they make life pretty difficult for people on the ground. And so the Cleaners use their weapons to, eliminate any of these threats that will come near any human settlements. And so the Cleaners explain that Rudo fell from a place called the Sphere and somehow managed to survive the trip because there's a barrier that separates the sphere from the ground. It's not just a distance. And so to try to sum this up, because there's a lot going on than just this, but to try and sum things up, Rudo is, of course, a very, very angry kid, and he wants revenge for this injustice that has been done upon him by the folks of the Sphere. But he has no way of reaching the skies or even how to cross this barrier, so he's stuck for now. But the Cleaner crew quickly adopt him into their ranks, and all the characters within become like his second family. And so naturally, you also have opposing groups. It's not just the trash beasts. We chiefly have a group called the Raiders, who are also can have giving weapons, and they want to use Rudo in order to learn more about the Sphere, as well as a set of mysterious clothing called the Watchman series, in which Rudo appears to be wearing the gloves from those series, and the gloves act as the conduit for his new abilities as a giver. And so it's just really cool, like it's this dirty, grungy Mad Max Road Warrior vibe, just the atmosphere of the show. It's got a hefty dose of skater punk graffiti tagging every wall, all the ceilings. The powers of giving are really cool. The wheelers are employing unique tactics and fighting styles based on their weapons. This show operates on the rule of cool, and it has a lot of really neat and layered aspects to its story, to its world building and lore. And of course, it ended right on the cusp of a series of major reveals. So obviously we're going to get more seasons of this. The manga is also excellent. I'm just now starting to read Gachiakata. And yeah, I'm excited for a season 2. My number 6 pick is Orb, on the Movements of the Earth. This is a historical drama epic across multiple decades with multiple characters, and it's a story about the quest for truth based on the manga by a guy named Uoto, who also just had another one of their works adapted, this one to film, which you can watch on Netflix. It's 100 meters, so it's track and field. And Orb is a complete story told in 25 episodes. It's the late 15th century Poland, where the church's doctrine is the truth, and any dissent from said doctrine is severely punished as heresy. This is doubly so for the field of astronomy, in which the church states that God made the earth as the center of the universe, whereas scientific observations from an array of astronomers over time seek to disprove otherwise, namely the idea of a heliocentric model. But all of this work has to be done in secret because the church employs a ruthless inquisitor who is very good at his job of tracking down them heretics. And that's about all I'm going to say. I'm not trying to skip over this one, but I'm trying to be vague on purpose because this show is best experienced as blindly as possible. It's one of the most compelling dramas I've watched this year, and it's only outside of my top 5 because, as given the nature of the show, it's not a very happy story at times. Following multiple characters across a time span of something like 50 years is not just because it takes these folks that long to do all of this. It's because Inquisitor Nowak is, shall we say, very good at his job. So sometimes some characters are just starting over from scratch. The next generation is starting over from scratch. In a more cheery tone, my number 5 is Medalist. This is based on the figure skating manga by Suru Maikata. We follow Inori. She's an 11-year-old latecomer to the sport of figure skating, and she has dreams of becoming a world-class competitor, but of course no one wants to coach her because she didn't start figure skating as a 4 to 5-year-old. So all the coaches are like, nah, you'll be fine as a hobbyist, but you're too old to do serious competitive skating. You're not teachable. Inori's mother is also extremely shy of figure skating due to Inori's older sister having a terrible experience with figure skating. So this entire promising career as a skater was tragically cut short. The sister's fine. She's just not ice skating. We also follow Tsukasa. So this is a former ice dancer on the verge of giving up on his dream and his career of figure skating. So it's a fateful encounter with him and Inori as she is sneaking out of the ice rink, and their lives are forever changed by this meeting. Tsukasa becomes Inori's coach, both to help her realize her dream and also put his own self-doubts and personal demons to rest. And we soon realize that Inori is an incredibly talented skater. And so with hard work and determination, Inori and Coach Tsukasa strive towards the goal of winning an Olympic gold medal, henceforth the title Medalist. So it's your classic underdog setup with all the emotional highs and lows that come with entering a tight-knit and highly competitive sport as the outsider. Ice skating is notoriously gatekeepery, so Inori's journey into this world is both tense and uplifting. Tsukasa's self-doubts and battles with depression through the show are also very compelling, and it's one of those moments of levity through the show that really enhance that drama of, do I deserve to teach this girl when I can't even get my own act together? The dance choreography is also well blended. It is, of course, 3D motion captured, but it's good 3D motion capture. The sound design is also on point. The routines are excellent, and they tie in perfectly to not only the skater's personality, but the development through their journey. And it's a shame that we don't have more figure skating anime in general, because, I'm not going to get into all of the production woes and things of Yuri on Ice, but Medalist is a shining example of the heights that the skating subgenre within the sports, umbrella. This is the example of what this subgenre can do. Season 2 is also currently airing, so there's even more reasons to get caught up with what I think is a really just good solid sports masterpiece. Moving right along into our first anime original series from Cygames Studios, which had one of my favorites from 2024 in Bravern. My number 4 is Apocalypse Hotel. Following the worldwide spread of a primate-killing virus that renders Earth uninhabitable to humans, we have fled to the stars until such a time that we either develop a cure or just letting the virus die out naturally, kind of like WALL-E style. It's now over a century later. One building remains in operation on the entire planet, the Gingoro Hotel in Ginza, which is maintained by an autonomous robot staff led by the concierge Yachio. When the hotel finally receives its first guest at the ending of episode 1, it's not who the staff expects. It's an alien. So now we have a robot staff programmed to serve humans. They have their first guest in over a century, but now they have to figure out how to serve an alien who doesn't speak the language or resemble anything close to human anatomy. Yachio and crew are later joined by a family of Tanuki aliens who are also incredibly long-lived, and so they become a mainstay of the series and help the robots out as more alien visitors find the hotels, and you run into various challenges that crop up, such as the disastrous hotel breaking, we're going out of business. We're out of hair scrunchies. Oh no, the hotel is going to go out of business because we ran out of alcohol. So now we have to brew whiskey. We have planet-destroying death worms, no big deal. We got to build a hot springs attraction. Also, we need to advertise better, so why don't we launch a rocket to advertise in space? You know, the usual hotel stuff. Apocalypse Hotel was utterly charming. It had me smiling throughout, had sprinkled with these moments of melancholy levity I was laughing, I was crying. This is a true gem of 2025. I would like to see a second entry, but I think the way that it ended was kind of like the perfect capping off to where they could do more if they wanted to, but it's also such a tightly produced collection of 12 episodes that I think it is just about perfect as is. Again, HIDIVE got themselves a true gem of 2025, and this is all the way back at the beginning of the year in the winter. So this is like something really special and like just barely outside my top 3. So as we go into the top 3 now, thank you for listening so far. What were some of your favorites of 2025? Has anything that I listed so far piqued your interest?
3.
So here we go. Going into the top 3. Sword of the Demon Hunter, Kijin Gentosho. This is my pick for my hidden gem of 2025 in a series. I actually produced an episode in November alongside the 950 Club podcast. Please check out the review. This is based on the light novel series by Matsuo Nakanishi, plus the manga illustrated by Yu Satomi. And this is a really interesting setup. So it's the Edo period. A brother and sister, Jinta and Suzune, they run away from home and are picked up by a traveling samurai who takes them back to his village and raises them as his own children in this mountain village of Kadono. Being a Sword of the Demon Hunter, naturally we have demons and monsters, and it's the responsibility of the Kadono village sentinel to defend their holy shrine maiden, the Ikutsuki Hime. So Jinta trains to take up the mantle of the next sentinel, while his foster sister, Byakuya, assumes the mantle of the next shrine maiden. And though Jinta and Byakuya are deeply in love, they both decide to pursue their duties for the good of the village. However, Jinta's little sister, Suzune, resents this arrangement, and one fateful day it all comes crashing down. Jinta is severely wounded by a mysterious demon who claims that the demon god, the demon lord, will arise in 170 years to take over the world, and on his way back as he's limping back to the village, he's met with the near destruction of Kadono, as another demon has taken the time to emotionally manipulate Suzune into unleashing her hidden demonic powers. And Suzune brutally murders Byakuya in front of Jinta, causing his rage unlocks his demonic transformation and begins the 170-year journey where Jinta takes up the sacred sword of Kadono in his quest for revenge against his foster sister Suzune. And so across his extraordinary journey through history, Jinta will face down multiple demons, encounter the supernatural, explore the mysteries of the human heart, and forge bonds that transcend natural lifespans. So, at the beginning, the revenge hook and supernatural elements, plus just the absolute brutal combat. But what kept me engaged with Sword of the Demon Hunter is the excellent character drama. People and objects who are introduced and who've come across Jinta's path. Some of these start off as background elements in one episode, only to get paid off or be the central focus in a later arc with additional payoffs as you go through the story based on what happened It's a very well layered show, and I think Demon Hunter has one of the best supporting casts of 2025. Everyone is important to Jinya's journey at multiple stages, and I found that the way that these moments were presented, it was very effective. This is a very well-paced show, and it's actually more interested in being a drama than it is being an action show. And sometimes Jinya gets to play detective, and a lot of the moments, it feels very true to his character and his journey as he's wrestling with his, burning hatred and his desire for revenge versus the people in his life going, well, there's a lot more to life than just trying to get revenge. You got to seek your own happiness. And then Genta's internal conflict of, do I deserve happiness when the only thing, my heart burns with rage. So do I even deserve this happiness? So please give Sword of the Demon Hunter a chance, or at least listen to the episode that I did with the 950 Club. I think it was a really fun episode. There's a lot left in the story to adapt for future seasons. I hope we get future seasons. And if you do check out the episode or check out the show on High Dive, I hope you join me on this journey. So we have another crazy just genre pivot for my number 2. After 15 years, they're finally back. Or has it only been 15 minutes since all of this went down? My number 2 is, of course, New Panty & Stocking with Garter Belt. Yes, this is technically a sequel, but this show originally was the result of a drunken brainstorming session from Hiroyuki Imaishi and the crew at Gainax back in 2010 after they were wrapping the production on Gurren Lagann. Panty & Stocking with Garter Belt was this bold experiment of line-crossing humor and perversion wrapped in a gloriously animated homage to American cartoons set against this heavenly proxy war between the angel sisters Panty & Stocking and their demonic counterparts, Scanty and Knee Socks. And so Panty & Stocking bum around the church, Cemetery Hills, under the care of the Reverend Garter Belt. The city is besieged by ghosts, and the sisters are tasked with destroying the ghosts by transforming their lingerie into sacred weapons and, slaying the ghost. By doing this, the sisters can earn heaven coins with which they intend to one day buy their way back into heaven. However, Panty & Stocking are constantly sidetracked by their respective addictions to sex and sugary sweets. But it ended on this ridiculous troll cliffhanger, and that was the story for basically 15 years, until we were blessed with, quote, Season 2, courtesy again of Imaishi and his crew, now at Studio Trigger. This was one of those things where Gainax, as a legal entity, finally shut down, the doors were done, and so many of the properties that were in their catalog were ceded over to Hideaki Anno's, like Studio Kara for Evangelion, and then Imaishi, as Studio Trigger, got, I believe, like Gurren Lagann and Panty & Stocking. So Panty & Stocking's now going to, I'm not going to say it would potentially be an annualized series, but now it's just something that can continue its run. I mean, ostensibly, the story of Season 2 is we're off to the races again, but now Scanty and Knee Socks, the demon sisters, are banished from hell, and so now they're bumming around the church with Panty & Stocking, and they have a similar mission of collecting hell coins to earn their way back home. The cast is further expanded with the Angel Brothers, Polyester and Polyurethane, who have faces and attitudes that are just perfect punching bags. I love to hate these guys. But Panty & Stocking is, again, there's not a lot of continuity to worry about. The standalone episodes are the real highlight. They feature a wide array of animation and art styles, and it gives the cast, some of the newer directors and folks at the studio, it's almost like an anthology series in that way. And these episodes range from like Golden Age Marvel DC Comics to there's like a Dungeons and Dragons, like Conan the Barbarian inspired episode with zero dialogue. You have references, like there's one episode that's Independence Day, another one parodies Indiana Jones, even like The Longest Yard for some reason. And just every bit of it is just crammed with jokes that just had my jaw on the floor. Like, how the hell did any of this get past all of the censors? Like, you truly deserve it to yourself to witness the greatness that is Panty & Stocking. And I really do hope that they're able to bring it back as a sort of Pop Team Epic kind of series of just, we're going to produce a couple of episodes that are just going to be about nothing. 1. And so after the craziness of Panty & Stocking, my number 1 show by a country mile, by a landslide, To Be Hero X. And this is a Chinese co-production with Japanese company Aniplex, released on Crunchyroll and simuldubbed in Japanese and English, while also having a Chinese dub with subtitles. Now, the summary of To Be Hero X and just the world in general is deceptively simple. This is a world where trust, like the literal trust, can turn people into superheroes. Like if enough people truly believe that someone can fly, then that person will gain the ability to fly. Of course, the opposite is true. If that hero loses the faith of their fans, their powers weaken or can be taken away entirely. And so this trust, it's measured, quantified, collected as data, which is used to create a ranking system. And it's called a trust value. And so every 2 years, the top 10 heroes who all live in Hero Tower, they gather every 2 years to compete in this tournament, and the number one ranking hero out of that tournament is given the title of X. And so To Be Hero X follows the story of various heroes who populate the top 10 and all the people who are affected both positively and negatively by their actions. So the actions of one hero will influence the story of another hero or a normal person who then becomes a hero because of the actions of somebody. Through the years, we see the rise and fall of several heroes, either through scandal, they lose a battle, or they are corrupted by an opposing energy called fear, which can literally turn people into monsters. So these opposing forces of trust and fear. This is To Be Hero X is really one giant game of chess played by the advertising agencies and then ostensibly the government of this world, the Hero Commission, and all the various actors who stand by to profit from maintaining some kind of status quo of these top 10 heroes and the different organizations, while also trying to backstab each other at the same time. I want my hero to enter the top 10, so now we're going to have them target someone in the top 10 either through scandal or literal backstab. And all of this is told in a non-linear fashion, which is very difficult to pull off, yet this show made it look easy. And all the years are called like after commission. So like one time we'll be at like year 40 after commission, and then all of a sudden it's year 5 after commission or something, and then we're back to year 45. And then, okay, what happened in year 15? And it all layers together in a really interesting web of narratives where a mystery of one character gets solved by the journey of what seems to be a completely different character. And so as we start to get a better idea of our top 10, as well as the mysterious X, the world becomes that much more complicated. What was once seen as straightforward, good versus evil, villains are in this world as well. Nothing is as it seems. But of course, if we're talking about the chief appeal of the series and where all the clips are getting farmed from, it's the animation, namely how the show seamlessly jumps between the smooth and snappy 3D, as well as the 2D animation with the bold lines. It's a style that echoes both American comics and Japanese manga, and the show will seamlessly jump between these two styles, and it's all diegetic. There's it's not just happening at random. It seems to happen at random, but it's all diegetic. There's a reason that it's happening in the show. Also, the soundtrack is by Hiroyuki Sawano and his crew. Soundtrack absolutely sings. It's a thumping soundtrack. It's a near perfect blend of dynamic visuals, unique and compelling characters who change drastically as the show progresses, and a mystery at the heart of it all that is deliciously teased out until the big reveal. Also, X, the guy at the top, he is my favorite character to watch in this show. His powers are pure fun. His sequences are clearly inspired, or just remind me of Spider-Verse. And I think To Be Hero X is not just the best anime of 2025, but it's one of the best anime that I've seen as like in the 2020s. I think this is going to be a top 10 contender for me if I do like a decade in review. And we are indeed getting another season. It was left off on a cliffhanger of sorts, or it's right before the tournament's about to start. And going on right now, on Bilibili and everything, going on right now are popularity polls for these very heroes in the top 10, and the results of that poll will determine in the show who gets to do what. What's going to be the general power scaling of everybody in the show based on the surveys done in real time, which is how To Be Hero X, which is how this show was put together, and just extra layer of just blowing my mind at just how good this show is. And so that is my top anime of 2025. This has been my year in review. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you're as excited as I am for what anime has to offer in 2026. Once again, if you like what I do here, please follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, all the good things. Of course, we have the YouTube channel, the Anime Field Guide, and most importantly than all of this, thank you again for listening through this episode. Seriously, your support for this show is what made 2025 so special. And I am eternally grateful, and I am really looking forward to another excellent year, and to do this all again. I'm very curious as to what will be my year in review for 2026. I really am excited, and I hope you are as well. So until next time, stay safe, and watch more cartoons.